Welcome to Deep Drinks Podcast, where the drinks are deep and the conversations are deeper. Hey everybody, welcome to a very special episode of Deep Drinks Podcast. I finally convinced my wife, my beautiful queen of a wife, to come on to Deep Drinks, and she's very nervous. Her Apple Watch is telling her heart rate is up high, so this is a very personal subject for both of us. So thank you so much for coming out and saying hello. Please be kind in the comments. We will ban anyone who's trying to troll. We're happy to take any good faith questions. So yeah, let's get ready to rock. Before we start, as always, I want to point out a few things. Firstly, coming up on Deep Drinks, we have next week, which I got the dates wrong last week, but this next week we have Why the Paranormal is Bullshit with Skeptic, which is going to be a really, really cool episode. He was studying to be a medium, so that's going to be an interesting story, and he's got an awesome channel. And then we have The Problem of Evil with philosopher Michael Jones of Inspiring Philosophy. He just finished his master's degree, and I'm going to be hitting him with the hard-hitting questions. I promised him I wouldn't be just screaming at him why children have cancer for the entire time, but we'll see how we go, because we are drinking scotch, so that's going to be a great one. And also, we are doing really well with Deep Drinks Podcast. I'm surprised on how many people are actually listening to it on Spotify. So I get the analytics in the background, but yeah, so many people are enjoying the podcast and giving it a go. I have some friends who are actually listening to it from the start, which is I hope my interviewing skills have gotten better over time. A few episodes I really like is Haley Brooke, Hidden Queen's great episode as well. I love Thomas Westbrook, Holy Kool-Aid. That was a really fun episode. Derek, it's heartbreaking and crazy episode. Derek will be coming on again soon as well. And Nuria Khan, my recent favorite episode, Leaving Islam, last week's episode. It was something else. It was really incredible. So with that said, I'm going to introduce my lovely, beautiful goddess of a wife, Aimee McDonald. Aimee is a beautiful, kind queen of the McDonald household. Aimee and I have been married for 8 years and have been doing fertility treatment for 5 years. In that time, Aimee and I have both experienced the many lows of that process and experienced many unexpected emotional tolls, which we will touch on today. So with that said, welcome to my beautiful wife, Aimee McDonald. Yay! We need like
casually sit down.
Yeah. we need some like fun, cheery music or something. Yeah. So yeah. What are we drinking, babe?
Well, because I'm pregnant, I can't drink alcohol, which is very sad. Otherwise, I'd be drinking gin. But a non-alcoholic beer, heaps normal.
Heaps normal. Oh, look, the color grading has turned the white like green. Yeah. That's funny. So let's get them poured. So even though it's 10 a.m., we're drinking beer, non-alcoholic beer. That's just
so it's fine.
Yeah, it's just Australian culture. But you know, give us some grace as we warm up here, because this is quite a personal subject, as you might imagine. I didn't imagine that that it was like fertility treatment was so personal until we went through it ourselves, like so harsh until we went through it ourselves. Did you always think it was a personal subject?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Because I don't know, you have a lot of people continuously asking, like, "Oh, you guys have been married for like X amount of years now. Are you guys going to start a family?" And all that stuff. So there's like a lot of pressure from like the outside already, just to hurry up and have kids, and people just don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it's
so it is quite personal.
Yeah. And just before, I forgot to mention this to you before, babe, but we can see people's comments pop up, so you can read them out if you like. So Aaron said, "Gin tastes like drinking a pine tree."
Well, I don't know what gin you're drinking, but definitely not.
I like pine trees. And also something I forgot to mention. And this episode is off the cuff. We decided to do it last minute. I convinced Aimee. And you can hear our dog growling in the background. But last week we actually got closer to our goal of getting to 1,000 subscribers, where we're going to be doing a charity stream. Would I be able to convince you to come on the charity stream? Oh, a new guest. Oh, agnostic Aimee. So yeah, we've gone from this to we're now at 30% of the way there, 300 subscribers. So that is awesome. And our dog is going crazy.
He's lost a ball underneath your bookshelf.
Okay. So Manny, come on, you're disturbing the stream. You want to join in? Come on. Maybe up too high for him. Oh. So yeah, this is our dog Manny. He's our second beta child. We lost our first child last year, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's put him down. So babe, do you want to talk us? Do you want to talk us through the process of what IUI and IVF look like for you, Manny?
Starting from where exactly? Like what?
Like when did you start thinking that we might need to go through IVF or IUI? So I remember you wanted me to go get tested because we stopped using protection.
Yeah, well, but I always strongly believed that I had endometriosis. Just because of growing up, my mum had it, and every month was quite painful and stuff. So I always kind of suspected that I did, and I knew that can potentially stop you from falling pregnant. But as I was researching it, they're all saying like, oh, well, you got to wait a year before you start getting tested as partners, and they test the male first because it's a lot easier to test you to see if there's any issues with you before they turn to me. So I was trying to get a jump start on that.
I wonder if it's appropriate for me to tell the story of when I got my sperm tested. What do you think?
Go for it.
Okay. So, we have Tang Gang in the comments. Hey, Tang Gang and River City Films. You guys are hot. Do you know who that is?
No.
That's Josh. So thanks, Josh, and thanks, Tang Gang. Thanks, Ultimate Debate Championship and Aaron for showing up. So hello, Manny. Sorry, I'm just scratching this guy. He wants the attention. So when you asked me to go get my sperm tested, I called up the clinic and I was like, hey, I need to get my sperm tested. Like, how do I do this? And they're like, well, you can do it at home and then bring it in, but it's got to be within half an hour. And I was like, we don't live half an hour. Like, that's going to be depending on traffic, that's not good. And I was like, do you have a room or anything? And they're like, and this is, I don't know why it's like this in Australia, but they're like, we have a public toilet. I'm like, a public toilet, like a public toilet. So, I'm like, okay, this is a mess. And this is a very TMI, but I'm going to tell it anyway. So, I'm like, all right, I'll go use the public toilet. I'm thinking it's like a big ass public toilet. No, it's one cubicle and two urinals with no door off the main counter of like the hospital. So it's like just like a little toilet there, and that's the only one I could find. And I go in there and I can hear nurses and doctors walking past and like talking and stuff. And I'm trying
it sets the mood.
I'm trying to accomplish the task. And you know, I like it was work, let me tell you, to accomplish the task in that environment. But I did it. Anyway, so I wrote the time that I did it on there and everything, and I walked out and I saw the sorry.
And let me get it.
Yeah. Just our dog's lost his ball. Yes, it was a challenging wank, Aaron, and he's got beans. So yeah, so I'm like panicking. Like I come out of there not panicking, but like coming out of there like, you know, just like gone through one of the toughest alone times in my life. And straight away I find the doors to the clinic I've got to like drop it off to, and I look at the time and it says like 1 minute before like was when I collected the sample, and I was like, I can't walk in there like still out of breath, like here's my sample. Like that's just too weird. That's freaking weird.
That's very intimate.
Yeah, it's too intimate. And I was like, no, I can't do this. So I sat there on a bench for 10 minutes, just with it in my pocket, just like waiting for the because I didn't want them to be like, this was in yourself like a few moments beforehand. So I literally like went in, and then the worst part is like when I went in, I like dropped it off, and you walk in and it's like a science laboratory like straight away. There's no, I mean, this is like, I guess it's niche. They don't have like a consumer market or something, but I go in and it's like, you know, a scientist comes out and there's like lab stuff kind of everywhere and like paperwork everywhere. And she's like, oh yeah. And she like opens the bag and he's like looking at it. I'm like, can you do this when I'm not here? I'm like, oh, this is too intimate. Like, get out. So yeah, it was horrible. So like I left.
I know what you're talking about. That's a great experience.
Oh geez. That was a you probably come closer.
Sorry.
That was probably that was probably like the toughest experience I went through, which in retrospect is an incredible
Sounds pretty
experience.
nice.
Yeah, compared to what you've gone through this whole time. So we always make jokes that it's not a joke, it's fully real, that you know, Aimee gets like prodded and stabbed and things shoved up her without her consent. Well, I guess you do consent, but you don't want it to happen. And then you know, and just like people looking everywhere and stuff. And what I get to do is stay home from work masturbating with no social discourse. Like no, like everyone's okay with it. Like it's the only time in my life it's socially acceptable to stay home from work masturbating to give a sample. So yeah. So this story is more about your story, more about what you've gone through.
Oh, you don't want to give them the results?
Of what, my test?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so this is a bit intimate. So when I got my sperm test sorted, the doctor said to me when I come in to like test my sperm, he goes, mate, he goes, what? He's like, you should be he's like, to be normal, considered normal, you should have, I can't remember what the numbers were, but he's like, you should have a number of like 50. He's like, you're 84. I'm like, whoa. And he's like, the amount, he's like, you should be, you know, this, but you're 142. Like it was just like way over, like I was blowing records, like it was crazy. And he was just like, he's like, you need to hang this on your fridge. And I think I did, didn't I?
You did.
No, I hanged the test sample on the fridge. I was like, yeah.
No, the report, not
the report,
the sample.
not the sample. Yeah. So Tom Nagel said, what did it taste like? That's not a troll for my mods. It's one of my dearest friends. So yeah, it was, you know, it was an experience, but how's this beer? It's not bad, eh?
Yeah, it's good.
For non-alcoholic.
Yeah. It tastes like beer.
And you've missed beer.
Yeah, I've just missed alcohol in general.
Yeah. So, I guess we can go through like, so I guess we can go through the process of like, trying IUI, and like our attempts at that, or like, can you give the people a rundown of like what you went through?
Yeah.
Or just
trying to work out where to start from.
Start from wherever you like. It's deep drinks.
We ended up I ended up having like a bunch of scans and stuff, and then they thought that yes, they could see that I had quite large, quite serious endometriosis, and so we had to go through quite a while of being on different hormone treatment and stuff because it's quite large to help bring it down before they could operate. And yeah, so we did, I don't know if that was like 6 months or something. And then we did, then we had the operation and had to go in 2 weeks later for a follow-up. And yeah, we just kind of kept getting knockbacks after knockbacks. Like we I think by the end I ended up having 4 surgeries to try and get rid of this endo, just so that we could start either IUI or IVF. And that really spanned out over, I don't know, like 3 years maybe.
Yeah. And this is like a costly thing too, because in Australia we don't.
Yeah.
We everything's covered. Most things are covered with just the public system with health, but with IVF and IUI fertility treatment, it's not. You have to get private health insurance to cover. You don't have to. You can just pay for it out of pocket. But it was something like $43 a week we're paying for private health insurance just for a year. You have to do it for a year before you start getting surgeries and stuff, and then they give you a certain amount off.
Yeah, but even with that, I think it was still like $5,000 or something just to do the first surgery.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because that was the big one. Because I had to stay overnight in hospital and stuff.
When you came out, they had connected. They had like tied something to like your belly button or something. Or something, they tied something inside.
Oh, you. My ovary was stuck to my bladder or something like that, and so they had to like cut the endo to separate them, and then tie my ovary back up to my stomach and stitch it there, so that it would stay there and keep it there for a week before I could go get stitches out. So I couldn't stand up straight for a week, and I was like hobbling around the house,
bent over like this, like literally like an almost 90-degree angle, and walking like tiny little footsteps.
Yeah.
I got these cool videos of it. I love that. Like people commented, like, I love that you're not helping your wife. You're filming her and laughing as she's like all drugged up trying to walk back to the house.
Yeah.
I sometimes have problems with empathy, I guess, or maybe I
don't. No, you don't. You just like filming stuff.
Yeah. So that like we went through a bunch of them, and they were, they were unsuccessful. But what they did is the actual process of IUI is quite interesting. So what's IUI stand for?
Oh, I actually can't remember.
Give us the scientific definitions of everything, please.
No, thank you.
And it's like, I don't know much about IVF. I thought, why are people going to quiz you? I'm like, no one's going to quiz you on like scientific meanings and stuff.
Yeah. No, I can't remember, but pretty much they put me on some drugs and keep scanning me every couple of days to see where my ovulation is at, and the eggs that are ripening, how big they're getting before they release. And then when it gets to like a stage that they're happy with, they then give me a trigger shot, which causes my body to ovulate. And then they get Dave to do his thing and bring back another cup.
Yeah.
And yeah, then they pretty much put that in me at a very, very specific time.
Yeah.
So that's IUI.
They like take my sperm and like whiz it around in a centrifuge, and all the dead or weak sperm moves to one side, and all the strong sperm like stick up to one side. Then they like take the strong sperm and then they chemically treat it to like boost it, make it like jacked sperm. And then they open up Aimee with a speculum, and then they go and they see a cervix and stick it right on the cervix. And I asked the doctor, I love
your descriptions of everything.
And I asked the doctor, I was like, do you guys sell these speculums? And he was like, oh no, we'll give you some in a gift bag. And Amy's like laughing her head off.
Joke, obviously, we did not have one of those.
Yeah, I had to buy it online. They didn't
whatever, stop it.
They didn't get it for me, so you can look inside. No, gross. So Brett the Weak from the Strong Nidimus said, yes, that's true. Yeah, so
oh yeah, so then we had the 2-week wait to then find out if it actually worked or not.
And I'm filming and we're like, ooh, and then like the doctor comes on and he's like, it didn't work. I'm like, oh. I still got the footage of us just
getting, do you?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't remember you taking that.
Oh yeah, I'm always filming something.
Oh.
There's a camera back there. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, so that one didn't work, and then we're like, oh, okay, we'll try again, because our specialist was like, we've got the majority of the endo. It's all good. You guys are still quite young. Like, there's nothing else going on. We should be like still have like, I think it's like a 20% chance with the IUI.
20% per
yeah. So he's like, oh, if you guys want to, we can go again. And so we decided to, and then went through the same process again. And I can't remember, did we do it 2 times or 3 times?
I have no idea.
I can't remember if we did it twice or 3 times, but we anyway, some of them didn't work, and then when we went to go do it, either the second time or the third time, they were scanning me and realized that I had from all the drugs, like a boost in my estrogen and stuff. It actually caused a cyst.
That's right.
Yeah, and so they actually went in while I was awake with like a needle and stuff and drained the cyst right there.
That. That's so gross.
Yeah, when we were there. And then because of that, then we had to wait again for a while before we could do another one. And then my endo came back just because of all of the drugs that we were taking. So we had to do another surgery.
Fun. Nidimus actually said this, babe. You want to read it out?
Which one? Yeah, this is how you get McDonald's. Oh, wow. Very different kind of McDonald's.
Yeah. So before we move into, like, so you're pregnant now.
Yes.
How far along are we?
24 weeks.
24 weeks. That's very exciting.
I think we worked out it's like 5.5 months or something.
That's super exciting.
Yeah, we've only got 16 weeks left.
That's super stressful. That's scary.
I
don't even feel like you're pregnant. I just
have this like.
When you bring home baby clothes, I'm like, what? Like, it freaks me out. I'm like, oh, there's a baby gonna be in there. That's gross. Like, it's just not gross, but it freaks me out. But before we did the IVF stuff, like, it was like I have this joke, and that was Aimee wants 4 kids, I want 0, so we're going to meet at the middle at 2, which isn't the middle. That's part of the joke. And also the joke is I don't want kids. I have grown to want kids, but I was for a while I was like take it or leave it. But now I'm really stoked for kids. But you've always wanted kids. Like, you're insane in a little bit with kids. Like, when we used to go to church, you used to run the J Juniors, the Jesus Juniors, which was what age group?
3 to 6, or 3 to 5. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember helping out down there before we were dating, and one of the kids, I think it was the young Will, thought it was fun to try and sack whack me, and like got all the kids to try and sack me. It was not a good time.
It was a great time.
I'm surprised I could give such a good sample after the J Juniors. But yeah. So yeah, that was good. And, we read them stories and stuff, and had like face painting things. We should have photos of it come up. We don't have any on hand, but yeah, it was really good. But you've always been really into the children, and it's been such an important part for you. So I can never relate to the stresses that you went through dealing with that.
Yeah. Well, it is. I don't know. You kind of put more pressure on yourself almost, because it's something that I had always wanted, and wanted like a medium to large size family. So to start thinking that might not possibly happen, or not that it might not happen, but more that it might not happen like the way that I thought. Like, I don't know. You get when you're growing up, like in sex ed and stuff, you're pretty much told like all it takes is one time to have sex to fall pregnant, which is true. However, there are also people out there like me and others who have different complications and stuff that it's actually a lot harder than that. And so to grow up thinking that, it's super easy to fall pregnant, and then to hit all these roadblocks and stuff is really discouraging. Yeah.
And it's hard too, because people don't realize like the emotional toll it takes when you see a friend who has fallen pregnant, and you've got these conflicting emotions where you're happy for them, but you're super jealous, and it's a reminder of yourself and your troubles and stuff. And it's like this conflicting feeling because you don't want to feel upset, or you don't want it to make it about you, but you can't help it because it's so raw.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I would use the word. Oh, it's hard. I don't know if I'd use the word jealous, but it definitely feels like, for me anyway, it would feel like a slap in the face. Almost. Not from them personally, just like the situation. Yeah. Like I don't know. I feel like everyone goes through stages where like all your friends around you are like getting engaged and getting married, and then the next stage is like all your friends and family are like getting pregnant and stuff around you. And so yeah, I don't know, having that, it's just, I don't know, you go through stages of emotions, and you'll finally become like okay with what's going on, like a little bit more mentally stable, and then someone else will announce that they're pregnant, and then it just, I don't know, it just brings all those emotions back up and stuff. No fault to the person who's has the amazing news that they're pregnant, but it's just it just brings it straight back into your face, I guess.
And I didn't hey Mr. Bootleg, and I didn't realize like the depths of the despair until I think it was one night we were coming back from a party. You'd been drinking. I'm not sure if you'd been drinking too much, or maybe you hadn't been drinking. I think you'd been drinking.
I think I was.
We were driving, and you were having a conversation, and you just broke down scream crying, whatever that is. Like, not like screaming at me, but you were just like, and I was like, whoa, I could feel like the depths of your non-existent soul just in that. I'm not saying you don't have a soul. I'm saying I don't believe in souls. But I could feel like a deeper, a deeper like a trauma there. And I didn't, and I was like, whoa. And I remember, I don't know if it was then, it probably wasn't then, it was probably some other time, but I said like, hey, like I've never been a huge person for kids. Like, it's like, if you decided like, no, I don't want kids, I want to travel Europe and do whatever for the rest of our lives, I'm like, okay, like, cool, whatever. There's benefits to that as well. But at that moment, around that time, I was like, okay, well, like, if this is this important to you, then we're gonna have kids. Like, I immediately became like, it wasn't an issue. And it wasn't like, and I was like, if IUI doesn't work, we'll try IVF. If IVF doesn't work, like, I don't care the price is. If IVF doesn't work, then we can try surrogacy. If surrogacy doesn't work, then we can try and adopt. If adopting doesn't work, we can move to Africa and adopt an orphanage. Either way, you're going to have children in your life.
Yeah. And I do remember you saying that, and that did make me feel a little bit better, because then I was like, oh, okay, well, like, we will one day end up having kids, which was the ideal goal, but it still felt didn't feel the same for me, because I always wanted to be pregnant. I always wanted to have the experience of going through pregnancy and stuff. And so if we did have to go down that route of adopting or surrogacy or something else, then that part was kind of getting taken away from me, which was also sad in another aspect.
I mean, you also want to get married and pregnant at 21. So
I wanted to be pregnant at 21. Yeah. I think that was more
church chicks. Am I right?
Following in my family's footsteps.
Yeah.
I don't know. My mom had me when she was 21, so I was like, oh, yeah, well, that's fine. And I always wanted kids, so I was like, that's no problem.
Yeah. Yeah. There's yeah, and like, but just for me, like, I was like, because our relationship's quite special in that I think that we do a couple of things really well. We're not perfect, but we do a couple of things really well in our relationship, and I think it comes a lot. Some of it stemmed from my anxiety and like and stuff, which is like, I guess, a good thing that comes from anxiety. But we're really honest with each other. We talk about our feelings, even if they might hurt the other person. We'll be like, you know, we'll talk about them and we'll discuss everything. We're open and honest with each other, open and honest with ourselves about how we're feeling and what we're going through and stuff. And we respect each other. So, you know, like that. But then the other thing too is we support each other in what we want to do. So for me, I like being creative. So, you know, I used to work on video games, and you'd support me in it. I'd just disappear into, I'd say, there's a game jam on this weekend, and I'd disappear into the garage. I'd even bring a mattress into the garage so I could sleep for 4 hours and get up, and you code a video game from start to finish in 48 hours. And one of my cousins, Max, who might be watching now, probably not, he said, how do you just disappear for 4 days, for two or 3 days, and your wife is okay with you just being in the garage playing video games? I'm like, I'm not playing video games. This is an important thing for me. Like, this is a creative expression for me. This is like artwork, right? Same with like my obsession with books. Or like, you know, I'm buying a book every week, and Amy's like, yes, this is, you know, you support me. Or the videos making, or deep drinks, you know, or the arguments I get on Facebook. She's like, why do you do this to yourself? I'm like, well, I don't really do that anymore. I couldn't do it. Yeah, but like you support me in the things that are important to me, and I try and support you in the things that are important to you. And even if I don't see, like, for a while I didn't see why kids were so important to you, and you obviously don't see why a lot of the things I do are important to me, but we respect each other in that anyway. I think that's what makes our relationship cool.
I agree.
Yeah. Love you. Someone said, God bless Trump. I'm wondering if that is Max. Like the one I said is not watching. So one thing that we did get before we go into the IVF stuff is one thing that we got was lots of unsolicited advice. And it was like getting to a point where it was extremely hard for us to deal with. Like, yeah. Like, because one you know, family members and friends who we really respect and love would tell us stuff that was conflicting. So our IVF specialist, you know, would ask them about the stuff, and then like tell them to go to medical school, or tell them to, you know, like there's no science for this at all. Would have people tell us.
Yeah, he was quite good because he's very like black and white.
Yeah.
Our fertility specialist.
Yeah, very, very black and white. And people would say, you know, you've got to give up soy, or soy is the problem, or
oh, there were so many different things, but it's they didn't know what the actual cause was.
Yeah.
They didn't realize that it was because of my endo.
Yeah. And we had like a beloved family member who hello Manny, highway man, who actually invited us to church. And so they what happened was they knew we hadn't been going to church for a while, and they knew that they didn't know where we were at in our faith and stuff. And we, you know, it's been a few years now since we kind of I stopped being convinced by the reasons for the existence of God. Different for both of us, but I guess we're both at that stage. And this person said that they were at a revival kind of style church meeting, and the person said, someone got up on stage and said, there is someone here whose family member is dealing with fertility stuff.
Oh, they said specifically endometriosis.
Endometriosis, yeah. And they need to come here next week because they'll get healed and they'll be have a baby, essentially. And this puts, you know, our family member in a really tough position because it's awkward, but they believe it, and of course, and of course, if you believed what you believed, you would definitely tell us about it, right? So they tell us about this, and it caused such conflict. I don't know why, but I think it was something to do with the feelings. I'm just talking about myself now. You can talk about you, but for me, it was something about the experience of like that old way of thinking, that old revivalist, churchy, prophecy kind of way of thinking.
Yeah, that you can go somewhere, be prayed over, and get healed.
Yeah.
And fix all your problems.
Yeah. We had, I've said this before, we had people in our church cut off their neck casts when they broke their neck, and had people digging their nails into the neck to prove that the neck was healed. Like, we had things like that happen. Of course, a few days later, the person went back to hospital with a more broken neck. But and we were all wondering why that happened. So yeah, so there was always stories about like people getting healed or whatever, and so it just bringing that in that old way of thinking, and you think you're so desperate, and you think, what if this rationale is just the devil's work or all this stuff?
It makes you second guess everything.
Yeah,
because
you're so desperate.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it's almost like, oh, we'll try anything. Yeah, that was really tough.
Yeah, and I remember like it was so weird because I'm like, I don't believe it, but for some reason it's just conflicting with me. And I know, like, if I was a Christian listening to myself talk, I'd be like, that was the calling of the Holy Spirit, that was the calling of God calling. And it's like, I don't know, because like I feel similar things when people tell me about like whatever other miracle solution they have, miracle water or whatever, of other faiths, or like you do this like black magic. I don't know what I'm talking about, but essentially, so I'm sitting in my bed and I'm talking to our roommate Kennedy about this, and I'm just like lying there. I'm like, this is just so conflicted because like it feels funny, and then I was talking about it all, like all the this just is just like hard to deal with emotionally. And I said to Kenny, I said, would you go? And she said no. And I said, why? And she goes, because I live in reality and I don't believe in these things. And I was like, and like, I mean, it was harsh, but that was her opinion, man. She was just listening to me, and I asked the question, and even that didn't sway me or anything. But what did sway me was I realized at that moment that if God could do that to me, if God could, and to you, sorry, to us, if God could give us a baby, he had that power, and I could talk to God. I would ask God, I would say, don't use your powers to do that. Go save that starving child. We can go through IVF. Don't save that starving child. Don't stop that little girl from being raped. Don't help us with IVF. Use your powers for something better. Right? And it's when I realized that the idea, the pure idea that God would come to one of the wealthiest countries on the earth with public health care and everything and offer to help us with a fixable problem, fixable with modern science, but then let people starve, made that God out to be a monster. I'm not saying God's a monster. I'm saying that idea of God is a monster.
Mm.
And like, it's like watching a child drown and then drying off the feet of another child because they got their tootsies wet. Save the child drowning. The child's drowning. You know what I mean? So for me, I was like, wow, like that really put it into perspective. If God can heal someone or wants to heal someone, hi Titan. Yeah. Hey Aaron. If God wants to heal someone of something like that, it paints them to be like a moral monster. And then, we talk to people about this, and they're like, oh yeah, I wonder how many people who know someone who has endometriosis.
Endometriosis is actually very common.
Isn't it like 40% or some ridiculous?
I can't remember.
I told you to all remember all scientific statistics.
But it is very, very common. Like, yeah,
super common.
Yeah.
And it's also one of those things that it's not visibly like you're healed, and then it's like, and then if someone, so like let's say 10 people, and this is not to poo-poo the religion of our family or whatever, but or the person who invited us, because they're just doing what they, and we love this person and everything, but if this church service, this revival church service, and I don't believe the people there are trying to con people either. I just believe they're also misguided. But these prophets or preachers or whatever who say, God wants to heal people with endometriosis. Let's say 10 people come, maybe 20. It's probably 20, 30, 40 people who come who have got endometriosis and they get healed. 39 of them cannot have a successful birth after that. One of them can, and it can be, and endometriosis isn't like a thing that stops, right? Like it's not like a thing that stops pregnancy all the time. It just reduces the rate of the chance of being pregnant by a lot, by a huge amount, right? So, or is that wrong?
Yes and no. It depends.
Yeah.
It
so
depends.
someone comes in with endometriosis. They have endometriosis fixed, well, not fixed, but they get pregnant after that, and they're like, what? It's a miracle from God. How can you deny the power of God? And it's like, well, what about those other 39 people? God wasn't talking to them. God wasn't talking to them. But if it worked for them, it's like God can never lose in this situation. And when I say God, I mean the idea of God. Like it's not. There's a great website. I don't know if it's still up, but it's like why doesn't God heal amputees.com or something like that. Why doesn't God? It's like you never see someone's legs grow back. I mean, there are stories of Smith Wigglesworth, feedback, but you never actually hear about that. So endometriosis affects about 10% of women globally. Thank you, Titan. That's interesting. So that was quite hard. We had family members asking questions about the like how IUI and IVF work. Because they're worried about souls being created, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do they get fertilized and the dishes get thrown out? And I just said I don't know, but I also don't care. Like I'm not worried about it. I went, okay, which is really nice of them to be respectful. But it was a funny story when I did. We had enough of unsolicited advice, like from our friends and family who, they're just trying to help. And I remember calling up.
But they don't ask first before they start doing it.
No.
They just assume that.
Rub garlic on your ankles for 4 nights a week.
Yeah. They don't understand exactly what you're going through.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And a lot of them offered to pay for like stuff, which was even harder because it's like they're paying for you to go to something that you don't necessarily agree with that path. And then like it might be like natural healing, which will reduce your diet and stuff or whatever, and it's like a mental conflict against what the actual science says, but what our IVF specialists are saying, people who didn't get their information from whatever, and so I'm getting drunk. Sorry. So yeah, I remember calling up. I called up a bunch of people, and it was literally like I remember calling up one of the worst culprits in our friends and family, and I said, hey mate, just so you know, we're not taking any more advice. It's just very hard. People are just ridiculous. Like, pointing to other people, like people are just ridiculous. So we're just putting a blanket ban on all advice. We really appreciate it, bro. And
it's probably worded a little bit different, but yeah.
Yeah, and without breaking a beat in the conversation, this person said, oh yeah, mate, people are ridiculous. Like I can't believe people giving unsolicited advice. And anyway, that thing I was telling you about the other day, that really works because blah 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 blah. And this person blah 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 blah. And I was like, oh, okay, we're not yet. And he's like, yeah, I know, it's just people. Yeah, it really works. Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, oh my, how does this happen? How does this happen? Like, how does this person not understand? Like,
I don't know if they think that they're on like a different
yeah,
I don't know, like tier. To other people and be like, oh, other people can't give advice, but I'm different, so therefore I can. Yeah,
and you have to too. Like it's like when you talk to someone about like complicated the old garlic on the ankle trick. Yep, that's right. You talk to people like when we have house meetings, I'll always talk about how much I suck, but that's not because like I do suck for like things like cleaning and stuff. But I'll be like, hey guys, we'll bring our roommates together. I'm like, we got to start cleaning and stuff. Even though like the thing that's pissing you off might be someone else. I'll be like, I've noticed that I do X, and that X thing is what everyone else has been doing more than me or whatever. And I'll always point it back to me, because you want them to feel like, yeah, Dave, you suck. Let's pull out. You want to like take the blame. You don't want to like point the finger at someone, because then they get on their back feet. So that's the same. Like when I was calling up people, I was like, oh mate, when I call up our friends, I'm like, oh, my family is nuts. When I call up my family, like, my friends are just crazy. Or I'll call up my family, like, oh, Amy's family just won't stop. And then I'll call up your family, like, oh. And it's all true, but it's just like, I'm just choosing what parts of the information. It's kind of deceptive a little bit, but it's like, I'm just not telling the full story to everyone. So yeah.
Yeah. So there was a lot of advice coming in our way, which made things harder.
Yeah.
It just makes it confusing and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I ended up going and probably like halfway through this, maybe actually booking in to see a psychologist, because it was getting...
Why? Were you nuts? Loony bin?
It was just getting too much for me. Like everyone around is falling pregnant, and all the setbacks that we kept having, and the setbacks were like setbacks that made us wait like another 6 months or a year and stuff like that. So they were like long setbacks, and then all the advice coming in from other people and stuff, it just got way too much mentally to deal with.
And it's hard because everyone's trying to just love you. That's the whole purpose of it. But
yeah, which also makes it hard on my end as well, because I know that that's the intention of these people who are giving us advice and stuff. And so you wanna like be nice and everything, but then at the same time you gotta, I don't know.
It's like
trying to work out how to like separate yourself from what they're saying, because you just can't. Well, I just couldn't handle it.
It's like getting slapped across the face. But they're just trying to swat a mozzie, but you keep getting slapped across the face, and it's like, I know there's mozzies here, like,
that's right, yeah.
But it still hurts. So Aaron asked, so when you began this journey, were you already out of church or still involved?
No, we were out of church. Yeah, we weren't in the church, but our families were still very much.
Yeah,
are still very much.
If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them. You're allowed to give unsolicited questions, but if we don't read them, it means that we don't want to answer them. So please don't be offended. There's some things
we've just missed it.
Or we've just missed it, yeah. But yeah, any questions, good faith questions are welcome, obviously. But thank you, Aaron. Yeah, so we're out of church. It'd been a few years. Yeah. We spoke about this last time you came on, but do you have like I can't remember, do you have like a moment where you realize, because the other thing about our amazing relationship is where, we're not joined at the hip in regards to like, we can disagree on stuff. I remember being drunk in a spa with you at some hotel, and we're like arguing about something, but like a friendly debate, and you're like floating around drunk, and I'm floating around drunk. We're like, and we're like arguing because we have different opinions, but it's like we don't have to share the same opinion.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, you were quite drunk. But yeah, so like, we didn't share the same opinion. So when you would, I didn't know if you didn't have faith anymore, or didn't have faith, I guess, were you no longer convinced of the idea of God? But I definitely wasn't. And then did you ever have like an aha moment? I can't remember if you told me.
No.
Did you just wake up one day?
No, it just eventuated.
Yeah. Was it like you didn't think about it, and then you're like, Did you remember when you thought, when you're like, maybe I don't believe in God?
Not particularly. It was probably a time when you asked me.
Yeah.
Outright. And then I think I was just like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Didn't have an aha moment.
And you don't really care either. That's what's so interesting. We've talked about this before, but Aimee just doesn't seem to care. whatever, let's get a cheese board. Like,
Yum.
I'm just like, but this affects everything. Like, I'm a very deep thinker. We went in church. We're out of church. But I guess those regarding going back to church for that like prayer and stuff, it definitely felt very
It definitely brought up the emotions and feelings of like, oh, are we wrong? Like, well, it did definitely for me. It made me kind of reevaluate stuff almost. And then because I was so desperate at the same time, I was like, oh well, should I just go?
Yeah.
And then if it works, great.
Yeah. Exactly. It's so weird too. It's like a weird bribery thing. It's like, it's a mighty fine soul you've got there. You want to come with the church? So, I was going to call this stream IVF when God fails, but that was a bit too spicy.
Oh my God.
But yeah, we ended up going down the route of IVF. And so let's tell a story about that. Let's tell the story about IVF. So how much was IVF? Did it cost us?
10 grand.
10 grand. And that's after 4 years of $43 a week.
Plus all the...
plus all the appointments and stuff.
And the surgeries and stuff.
Yeah, probably down like 30 grand at this stage. But we got,
I reckon.
Yeah, that's over a long time. But we got super lucky though with our first round. So we went through our first round of IVF. And it worked, which was huge news for us.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting.
No.
I thought I was kind of trying to mentally prepare myself for, we'll probably have to do this like quite a few times. I don't know why, but I had the number 4 in my head. I was like, we might have to do IVF like 4 times before it actually works.
Yeah.
So I was really shocked.
And if we did do it 4 times, you would have thought my intuition was correct. My intuition tells me stuff.
Yeah.
But now that it didn't, you're not going to doubt your intuition. You're just going to go, okay, it worked, great. That's how people get stuck into magical thinking. But
True.
hey everyone, thanks for joining. I can see our numbers have just jumped up, which is great. Thanks for sharing, everyone. Thanks for sharing, Aaron. I really appreciate it on Twitter. So we had a funny story though with the IVF. So with IVF, like it's crazy. You're injecting yourself every day for a while.
Even that
Yeah.
was funny in itself.
Okay, tell a story. Let's go.
Well, I had to do a bunch of pills and stuff beforehand.
Not MDMA.
And then, jeez, and then we had to switch over at like very specific time into these injections, and they called us in and they showed us how to do these injections, and it was like a pen version, so it's like super easy to use, so that you're not like, you don't have like a vial of the medication and like putting a needle in there and drawing it up and stuff and making sure there's no air bubbles or anything like that. This is like a pen that's already got everything in it, and you just wind up the dosage and then stab it into you. And then they showed us how to like take that needle off and everything, and it all seemed super simple. And then we actually filmed it. We've got it somewhere.
Oh, I wish we had that.
But so I did the first morning, and yeah, Dave filmed it because it was the first injection of doing IVF. And so I stabbed myself, took it out, and then tried to unscrew the needle, and it was stuck. And I was like, what? Am I doing this wrong? And I was trying to unscrew it.
I can imagine you shaking with your hands because you're always so nervous about that stuff.
Yeah, I probably was. And yeah, I think I was just so nervous doing my first one that I accidentally screwed it on way too tight. Way too tight. And so we couldn't even get it off. And Dave tried and he couldn't get it off. So he went to the garage and got
to use pliers.
Yeah, got pliers to try and unscrew this needle so that you could put the next one on for the next day. Because one pen lasted you like 4 days.
Yeah. Shuttered it.
Totally and we broke it and broke the whole pen. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't like our first needle, which was meant to be super easy, and we just broke the whole thing. And I was so embarrassed. I had to call the clinic and be like, we couldn't get the needle off and we broke the pen. I kind of need another pen.
They just gave us like a new one, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was quite funny.
Yeah, and then so we had this so we decided to go on like a little bit of a trip, like and stuff, like having good feelings, good vibes and stuff. Good vibes helps it.
Good vibes.
Good vibes, bro. Helps it. Oh, here we go. Now I'm talking like pseudoscience, but no, it actually does. Like no cortisone, stress levels in your stressing system, like good feelings and stuff.
Relaxing.
Yeah. So we went away on a holiday, went down to Brisbane, stayed on Queen Street, which was cool. Did lots of shopping, which gives you that steady drip of serotonin. And you had to take this nasal spray. And so do you want to tell that story? Or you tell the first part and then I'll take over.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this nasal spray, it was very specific. Had to have it morning and night at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. And so we took like all the injections and the nasal spray down to Brisbane with us. And I was taking it, and we caught up with friends one night. I think it was like one afternoon or something for like a late lunch. And I was like, I don't know if we'll be back by 7 o'clock. I'll just bring the nasal spray in my bag with me so that I can take it. And lucky I did, because we ended up staying out for hours and hours. And then so we went back to their place, and then we're like, we'll catch an Uber out to back out to the city so we can have some dinner. And as the Uber got there, my alarm went off to take the nasal spray, and so I whipped it out of my bag, and I was like, I'll just do this outside the car, because I didn't want to get in this guy's Uber and like be like snorting something.
mind you, the instructions for this were like it's okay if you're a few minutes late, but if you're like, don't be like 30 minutes late. You've got to be on time with the spray. It was very important spray. So I took it quickly, and I remember thinking like, there's like the safety clip on the spray wasn't there. I couldn't find it to remove it because it was dark, so I couldn't really see. And I was like, it must have like fallen off in my bag or something. So I took it anyway, and then we ended up going out and having dinner and stuff, going back to the hotel, going to bed. Got up the next morning, 7 o'clock, took it again, and then it triggered my memory about this, the safety clip. And I was like, where is it? It must have fallen off in my bag. And so I was rummaging through my bag, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And then like, this is like later, we're like later on, I don't know what happened.
And we're getting ready to go to breakfast.
Yeah, getting ready to go for breakfast. And I'm like, where is my hay fever spray? And I'm like getting so angry because I'm like getting all congested. I'm like, hay fever spray. And I'm like running around, and Amy's like, where do you leave it and all this stuff? And then it clicked. And then you looked. Yeah.
And I looked at the spray that I'd taken the night before and that morning, and I was like, oh my God, I have taken your allergy hay fever nasal spray and not my IVF spray. And then I went back to the bathroom and I saw my IVF spray. I just as we were going out of the hotel to meet with our friends, I just grabbed it quickly, and I obviously did not look very well. And I grabbed his hay fever spray, and so I burst into tears.
Yeah, and everything we look up, it's like, and because we've started the process now, so I think we would have lost like a few grand if we.
Oh, we'd already paid the 10 grand.
Yeah, but we would have we would have lost a few, like they would have like postponed it or something, or maybe we lost the 9 grand maybe.
We didn't.
We're
know.
not rich.
We didn't know at that stage.
We're not rich like at all. Like we grind hard to have what we have. That's why we got 2 people living with us. 2 boarders. So that 9 grand and we saved up for it and something, we're like, oh no. And we looked up everything online, and it's like, if you're an hour late, like it's fine, just take it. And we're like, hour late? Like we missed 2. Like it's 15 hours or something. And it's just like, so it's like everything was like, so you ruined your IVF. Like,
it was all like worst case scenario. Like, that round's done. You have to start again.
Yeah. And it was the spray was to do something to change, like to keep your body.
It was to stop me
ovulating.
from ovulating because because we're pumping me like with the injections with extra estrogen and stuff like that to get big follicles and eggs and stuff for ripening. They have to make sure your body doesn't ovulate early, so you have to take this spray to stop you from ovulating. So the fact that I had missed 2 lots of this spray could have potentially meant that I could have started ovulating, and then those eggs are just all gone.
Yeah, the ones that were boosted and everything.
Yeah.
So we're like, Devo, we're like, oh, well, what a great end of the trip. And what's funny is we stayed in that exact same hotel like a few months back, and when we came back, that's when we noticed our puppy Butters had, because he had really bad, he had a super rare lymphoma, like rare as in like there were 3 other dogs in the world who've ever had it, and his sample got sent to UCLA at the cost of $700 from us.
Yeah.
And he had big swollen lymph nodes, and he was on the highest amount of steroids he could have. And when we got back, he just had all
fluid and stuff on his chest,
and he was struggling to breathe. And we had to put him down that night, and it was the most heartbreaking thing. So 2 things, like coming home from Brisbane those 2 times were devastating news. Crushed, absolutely crushed both times. I still cry about Butters sometimes. But yeah, so we're like, oh, this is a bummer. And then what happens with and then your body changed right before surgery, right? You felt your body change.
Oh no, this is. Oh yeah. Well, we got back from Brisbane, and we had an appointment with our fertility specialist like on the Monday or something. And so I went to the bathroom, and you told him.
Yeah.
And he pretty much laughed.
He laughed. He's like, "Oh, that's fine. In your situation, it's fine."
Yeah. And then when I came back in from the bathroom, he pretended to get like super mad at me.
You forgot the spray, and you're like, "I'm sorry." He's like, "What are you doing?"
But yeah, no. It turns out it was all okay. He wasn't worried, and did the scan, and everything was still there and fine. It was the biggest relief ever.
But they check. So at that moment, then they check you for how many eggs you've got growing, right?
Yeah.
Like they scan you, and you're supposed to have 10 to 15 for your age, and like your health and boosted and everything, right?
Yeah. Well, that's more like minimum kind of.
Yeah, 10 to 15 minimum.
Yeah, you can have more.
Yeah, they found 4 eggs, and they said,
oh well, there were more eggs, but
4
those
big
4
eggs,
were big.
4 big eggs. So they're like, those other ones won't mature. Probably these 4 eggs are ones that might mature to big eggs for the surgery. And we're like, and they said most IVF surgeries would just go ahead, but we want to give you the option to pull back, try not to pull back, start a different course of hormone treatment, and see if we can get more eggs, and then try again in a few months.
Yeah, because they weren't sure if it was the specific medication that they had put me on, or if it was just the max of what my body could produce. So we didn't know, because it was the first round. It was kind of like an experiment almost.
Yeah. So yeah, we didn't have high hopes at all. And you go into surgery, and you told.
We decided to go ahead.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we decided to go ahead because we're like screw it, like, because we got into the elevator and of the place, and always it's always the case where I'm like, oh, great news. Like, and Amy's like has the exact opposite opinion. Like, it's devastating, and I'm like, no, they said in 2 months we can go.
I was in tears.
Yeah, and Amy's devastated, and it was at that moment that I was like, I said to you, I was like, fuck it. I was like, let's just go for it. And we were very lucky to get into a draw for a block of land that we were originally going to build on, and then we end up selling it. Long story, whole other long story, but essentially we knew we were going to come into like, you know, possibly come into 10 or 15 grand worth of money after tax that we could put towards another round. So I was like, fuck it, let's just roll the dice on this one. We got 4 eggs, maybe. and like whatever, like let's just and also if the first one fails, they give you the second one for free of that same like you pay for IVF once. If first one fails, the second one's free. Yeah. So like whatever, like who cares? Like let's just do it. Let's get something moving. It's been 5 years. It's ridiculous. And Amy's like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, all right, let's do it. So we decided to go ahead. We like made the decision, like screw it. But you were still very down about the whole thing. And when you went in to get the surgery, you told
egg retrieval.
Yeah, egg retrieval. When you went to get egg retrieval, you told them, no, I'm not going to have any. Didn't you? You said.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. A couple of things changed and it just made me doubt everything. And I was like, no, I don't think we'll have. I thought I had already ovulated and that those eggs were gone.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that was brutal. But we went in and it used to be tradition that they would write the number of eggs on your hand. So when you woke up from surgery, you could see it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do that anymore. But the nurse decided.
Well, here they don't do it anymore.
Yeah, here
I don't know if
anymore.
they do it.
So here they decided to do it.
Yeah, the nurse was very nice because I mentioned it and she's like, oh, well, if you want me to, like, I'm happy to write it on your hand. And I was like, yeah, okay, why not? And I was expecting like a big fat 0 when I woke up from anesthetic.
They wouldn't have put 0. They'd wait for like you wake up like, what's it? Like they wouldn't put 0. They would say like they wouldn't write anything and they'd just let your specialist.
Yeah, I suppose.
But we ended up taking this photo of the experience. So this is us when we got back from our house. Amy's drugged up, super drugged up there.
Such a great photo.
And big 9. So we got 9 eggs.
Yep.
And that was a huge surprise for us.
Yeah, massive.
We were like, what?
I thought it was getting 0.
Yeah, we were blown away. That was incredible. And we're like 9. We're like, and we just kept saying to each other like throughout the day, like, 9. We got 9 eggs. Like that's so cool. And then, I stayed home from work masturbating, which is great. Sent my sperm in, whatever. And they talked about, how long was it? We had to wait or something to see if the eggs fertilized or something.
It was only like, I think it was only like 28, 48 hours or something like that. But they kept calling us every couple of days to give us updates on how they were all going. And no, it must have been 24 hours because I remember the next day we got a call from the clinic and they were like, you had 9 eggs, 8 have successfully fertilized. And
we're like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. 8 little souls born at that moment. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they were like, oh, we'll keep an eye on them over the next couple of days to see how they progress. And she was like, you could end up losing like half of them. And yeah, that should give us a call and let us know what was going on. And then by the end it got down to
4.
Yeah, we had 4 that were pretty much good to go for us to use.
Then 1 died or something?
Yeah, then one didn't make it the next day, and so we're left with 3.
Because that little zygote or whatever it was wasn't baptized. Is it in hell now? Too dark? Oh, God, no. No, babies go to heaven. Even the ones that were commanded to be killed by God in the Old Testament. So where we had 3 then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they bring us in. They give us a tour. Like we're paying for this. We're paying out of the pocket, so they let us have a tour of like the science facility or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw it all working. And I didn't know this, but they actually showed us the sperm hitting the egg and forming like life, right? Like Well, they're both living things anyway. They're living tissue. So I don't know if life starts then, because they're two living things already. So life started 3.4 billion years ago, or around then. We think. Anyway, on this planet. But so it's super interesting. So we actually have the footage, and would like to show it and kind of talk about what's happening. So this is the footage,
on the outside.
and I'm going to turn the audio off. But this is the actual egg, and the egg, you can see around the edges there, there's like little sperms and stuff hanging out, and or whatever. And what happens is, so this device, it has like 9 focal planes or 15 focal planes. So it like takes different photos, different rates. These are our different eggs, and he's showing us a bunch of stuff, blah blah blah. So this one here is the one that we actually fertilized, the green one. So this is the one that actually got implanted, the little fetus that's in there now. So you can see it's splitting. It's splitting from one cell to a few cells to more cells to multiple cells, and it keeps doing that, which is really cool. And then they move it onto a different dish, and this is the exact one now, the exact fetus zygote that's forming. So I think this is a pre-blastocyst or something. I'm not a science man, but yeah, this is actually the process of the zygote coming together, which is really cool. And it's all just happening from the instructions of the DNA, and it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
And he actually explained to us like that, he explained to us chromosomes and stuff, and how like if you have the wrong amount, the baby will the fetus will die, and that's it kind of forming. Isn't it crazy? And it'll if it has the wrong amount, you'll have a miscarriage, you'll die, and that's what will happen, because they actually don't, the chromosomes don't fit through a certain hole or something. I'm not very smart man, but I know what love is. But and this is him describing all that. But what's really cool is and then he said, but there are some that don't end in a death of a miscarriage, and that's when you get things like chromosomal problems like Down syndrome and things like that. Those ones can continue to survive. But yeah, so this is the doctor doing all that, and this is when we first heard the heartbeat. So, and what's really cool is, and there's the little child.
This was
This
was like 7 weeks pregnant,
something like that. Yeah. Oh no, I think this was like 2 weeks pregnant.
No.
Oh, but anyway, but what's cool is we have just entered the stage where the fetus baby is starting to develop consciousness, which is really cool. So it's starting to have a subjective experience after 24 weeks, I think it is, which is really cool. Yeah, so I think it can start to understand noises and things like that, and like remember them. The other night, Aimee told me to push on her belly hard, and I did.
I did not say that.
How did that happen?
Well, I thought I could feel the baby's head on to one side, and I rolled over and I was like, feel this is really hard. And he thought I said push hard.
So I went, oh. And he's like, ah! I'm like, oh, and she's like, you moved it. So our child might have fingerprints in their head. We're not finding out the gender. Because obviously we won't know the gender until they're old enough to tell us. I've been saying that to that's somewhat of a joke, kinda, but it's but I've been saying that to our family and friends just to get them real pissed off, like like the more variety friends and stuff. It's so funny. But we talked in the last podcast, we don't care if our child's gay, straight. You know what? I'll still love our child if they're straight. If they're cisgendered, I'll still love them. We don't care if they're straight, gay, bisexual, transgender. We don't care about any of that stuff.
No.
None of that matters. So that was like kind of our journey of getting pregnant, and then
telling Dave was really hard.
Tell us that. Tell us that. I was about to go there.
So like I can't remember how many days after I got implanted, but when I got a blood test to then find out if we were actually pregnant or not. So I went and got that done, and then because I was the one who got the blood test, the clinic called me with the results to let me know. And so both Dave and I were at work that day, so we weren't together. So I found out first.
That's right.
And it was the nurse that called me. She's lovely. Although when she first called me, she had like a really down tone. And I said to her straight away, I was like, "Oh no, is it like it didn't work, did it?" And she was like, no, you're pregnant. And I was like, oh my God, what? And I just burst into tears. What
I was going to say, when they implanted it, Ben goes, our IVF specialist goes,
50%.
He goes 50%. And we go, so what?
50%.
50%? And we're like, what are you talking about, dog? Like 50%?
Yeah.
And we're like, we thought 20 at best. So it was like a coin toss.
Yeah.
And this isn't like, magic numbers, TAFE degree, soy isn't, soy will give you a 50%. This is like real number, like real science from specialists who train absolute experts in the field.
Yeah.
The top, how many deliveries have you done? Thousands.
Yeah.
Thousands of deliveries. Yeah. Handsome as well. Anyway, so
should I leave the room?
No. Maybe leave after we give birth. So me and him can have a cuddle. So him and I should have a cuddle. So keep going.
Oh yeah, so I found out first. So I said to the nurse, I explained to her that both of us went to like in the same room together, and that I was going to go home after work and tell Dave then, because I wanted to film his reaction, because he films me with everything, so I'm going to film him. And yeah, so I had like the whole.
You didn't. You missed the part where I told you to call up.
Oh yeah.
I call Aimee and I said, oh, we're supposed to find out today. I was like, can you call them? And Aimee's like, nah. And I was like, no. And she's like, they'll call us. And I'm like, no. I was like, we're meant to find out. Cool. And then I was working from home, and then you.
Oh yeah, because you were like, yeah, add them to the call, do a 3-way chat, and I was like, oh no. And I was like, no, it'll be fine. I'll just hang up here, and then I'll call them, and then I'll call you back.
Yeah.
And so I called back the nurse, and I was like, Davey's getting really antsy. He wants to know. And I had told her what I wanted to do, so she knew. And I was like, can you just like call him and like delay him until I get home from work? And she laughed, and she's like, yeah, okay, no worries.
And then she calls me, and she's like, oh, hi, this is blah blah, calling from blah blah. I'm just to inform you, unfortunately we won't have your results today. I'm like, why? And they're like, oh, they sent them to the wrong lab. I'm like, oh, and she's like, I know. I'm like, okay, thank you for calling. I'm like, incompetent. Why is
Yeah, and she told him that we wouldn't get the results till the Monday, because this was a Friday that we found out, so it wasn't going to be until the next week. Yeah. So Dave then thought that we weren't finding out till Monday, and so I came home a bit early.
I was recording a video, and I heard the door open weirdly, and I was like,
I was trying to be really quiet.
And you walk in, and I was like, oh hey, and then you're like, you're kind of looking like, hey, I'm like all just weird, and I was like, okay, like you're acting weird, and I was like, why are you home early? You're like, I thought I'd come home early. I'm like, okay, and I was like gonna continue recording my video, and then I was like, this is weird. I'm just going out there and see what's going on. And I come out there and I see your phone. And I was like, why is your phone there? I was like, whatever. Like, I didn't even think. I was just like, I can't believe they screwed up. Like, I'm just, being a Karen, I guess. Or being a, whatever. Being like just trying to vent. And then
and I was like, oh, yeah, I know, it really sucks.
And yeah, and then
Super catted
we
about it.
We got the video, but we might keep it to ourselves. But we opened the Aimee goes, oh, there's a bun in the oven. And I said, and at that time, one of our roommates had COVID, and we were giving them food under the door.
Yeah.
And we opened up and I was like, oh, I was like, I didn't put it there. And she's like, there's a bun in the oven. And I was like, I didn't put it there. And I was
yeah, he started getting really mad at me. I was like, I'm so glad I have this on camera.
I was like, well, I didn't put it there. And then you like picked it up. I was like, don't touch it. It's probably Brock did it. Like Brock's probably like put it there to cook it last night, and like you might get COVID. And
then, he's like, go wash your hands.
I'm like, go wash your hands. And and you're like, there's a bun in the oven. And I was like, I didn't put it there. I'm like, it's not as bad as I'm making out, but like, I'm thinking, okay, well, we got a video to see. And then I think you had to say like 2 or 3 times, and then I was like, I paused and I stopped. And I was like, are you pregnant? And then you're like, yeah. And I was like, oh, and I like touched your belly, and then I like stood back, and I was in shock for ages.
Yeah,
I didn't know what to say. I was just like,
yeah, he like froze for a little bit.
Yeah. Because in my mind, I was like, just give us the bad news. We've had 5 years of bad news. Like, just give us the bad news so we can make a huge bowl of pasta, eat our feelings, and like watch movies all weekend to try and like get out of the headspace or whatever. But when we found that out, we're like, what? And the first people we told weren't our family. It was, well, I guess I would call them our family, like Tom and India. We went and told them, because they've been like right by our side the whole time, you know, supporting us in the whole journey, even when they didn't necessarily like, we held off on IVF for some things once, and they were like, they thought we should have done IVF, and even though they thought that, they didn't like push that opinion on us or anything. They just you know, they were like, they supported us the whole time, which is really cool, and just really, I don't know, they're always there to talk to as well. But yeah, so we told them. And how we tell them?
Oh, we went and got like a tray, pretty much, of donuts, and then wrote on the inside of the box lid. I can't even remember what it said, but something like eat up. I can't be the only one with a belly.
Yeah.
And then baby McDonald due Jan 2023. Yeah.
And there's another one. We had the whole family over. Poppy was up, everyone was up, and I was like, "Oh, let's go get a photo in front. We're doing a Christmas in July thing. Yeah, big photo in front of the Christmas tree." And I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna take a photo." And I was like, "Everyone, say after me, repeat after me." And I was like, 3, 2, 1. Aimee's pregnant, and they're like, "What?" And they're all just like freaked out. People crying, you know, just people go, "Oh!" It was crazy. It was really cool.
Yeah, it was.
It just, and we filmed it, so we got everyone's like faces like shocked. You can see who first. Your dad is at the back, just like he apparently he was like, why would he joke about something like this? Like, he was like, because I always joke about inappropriate things. Why would you joke about something like this? And then it took, I guess he was so triggered, or like, so like, why would he do this? He didn't realize that you actually were pregnant until everyone was like reacting. So that's pretty funny. You can see everyone's like how they process it. We had you know, one of our Colin come over, and I said, he was standing here, and I said, "Look at us, just 3 of us hanging out." And he went, 3? And I said, "Oh,
you mean 4?
Oh yeah, 4, because Manny was there." I said, "Look at us, 4 of us."
No. Is there alcohol in this?
Maybe.
Do math.
Sorry. Well, I was like, "Look at us, just 4 of us hanging out." And he's like, 4? And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "You, me, Aimee, baby." And he's like, "Ah!" And then we have you know, we have a good friend who I used to always come home and say, "Hey babe," to Aimee, and they'd say, "Hey babe," like and then so we became the Bebs. So and then I said we're like going for a drive with them, and I was like, "Look at us, 4 Bebs in the car." And they're like, "What? 4?" I'm like, "Oh, baby." Same thing. So it was really cool how we like told everyone. It was really fun. Really
yeah,
fun
it was.
Fun way of saying. And we played a D&D game with everyone. And did we do anything for that? We were initially
we were thinking about it, but no, we didn't end up.
Yeah,
we didn't end up doing it.
We were gonna make like some like thing for the D&D thing where it's like Aimee's character gets pregnant or Aimee plays a fairy or something, or like to tell everyone, but we didn't. But yeah, it was really cool. It was really special, but it was a really hard process, and I feel sorry for people who go through the process. Like, I mean, we went through 5 years, but people go for much longer, and they do many failed attempts of IVF.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for someone who is going through that themselves?
That's a very good question. I think having at least one person to talk to about it is definitely something needed, whether that's a family member or a friend, or I went to a psychologist. Yeah, having just one person that you can talk to about it like freely and openly definitely is a bit helpful. Just someone to like air your thoughts and stuff, because yeah, you have a lot of stuff run through your head at that time. And yeah, self-care. Yeah, being kind to yourself, because it's it can be a really sucky time, to be honest.
Yeah, and it feels like it's never going to end.
Yeah, it does feel like it's never going to end, and you're just going to constantly have roadblock after roadblock, and like more money that you have to fork out at it, and how you're going to be able to afford it, and yeah, there's heaps of stuff in there.
And that's if you're in a country that you can have access to something like that.
Yeah, some people have to fly to other countries to get it done. Yeah, so it can definitely take a toll.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where I mentioned before, I made a joke about, what are you, a loony going to a psychologist? I didn't mention, but I should have mentioned straight afterward that the reason that is a joke is because I'm the biggest advocate. I think everyone should go to therapy. Every single person should go to therapy at times in their life, even just to check up, just to talk to someone about stuff, because mental health and mental well-being is a huge thing that we need to destigmatize, but also like your drunk friend or your friend or your family give advice, but it's not always the best advice. And it's also sometimes you don't want to be like a dumping ground for your friends and family, where you go to a psychologist. Like I went to a psychologist last week, and I was like this, and then they just asked a few questions, and then were like, okay, I think you're dealing with X. And then as soon as they said that, all the pieces fell together for me in my head, and I could conceptualize the issues.
Yeah. But in saying that, psychology and getting mental help like that is not always accessible for other people, especially when money comes into it as well. Some people just can't afford to do something like that.
That's true.
So, and another thing would be, if you're in that position, just write down all of your thoughts on paper or in your phone or something like that. Just something to help get stuff out of your head. Because if you stay in your head, you can just start going on loops, and can become harder for you. So just being able to like write it down on paper just helps in the process of getting it out of your mind and being able to think through properly what's actually going on.
Yeah, exactly. What advice would you have given yourself 5 years ago? Like, and let's take off the table, like, do IVF straight away, like advice like that, like practical advice, but like advice like how to deal with it emotionally and things.
Oh, I don't know. Probably be kind to myself. I was very much a person who puts other people's feelings ahead of mine. And so if someone would start giving me advice that I couldn't deal with hearing, I would just sit there and grin and bear it. Whereas I should have like sat there and thanked them for their love and care and advice. But at this time, I just don't want to talk about it at the moment, which is fine.
Mm.
You don't have to talk about it with every person who asks you, oh, when are you guys going to start a family? You guys have been married for however long.
Don't do that, people. Don't ask people about when they're going to start a family.
Yeah.
It can cause a lot of stress for people who maybe be trying to have kids. What do you say to someone who...
Or even for people who decide that they don't want kids. Some people decide that they don't want kids and don't want to have to explain to everyone why that is and stuff. It's their own personal choice.
And everyone, if you've got questions, we're going to be wrapping up soon, so to send them through. I see River City Films. I'll ask you a question in a sec, but what do you think about doing IVF from a religious perspective, with the idea of that life, that cells come together in the petri dish and things like that? What advice would you give to someone who's concerned about that?
If they're
religious, yeah.
Well, you can have a different take on things, that being that God or whoever you believe in, or it depends what you believe in, created these people to...
It triggers me, but go for it. Do that. God gave scientists smart brains so they could science, but let's not accept them when it comes to vaccines and blah 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 blah, because an evolution. Anyway, keep going. I agree, that's what you should do, but I'm just
it's just another... I know, but it's another way for to help those people get through. Like God has created these people and they've gone down these different study routes and stuff, and so they've learnt the scientific method. And so therefore you can still use that. You can still get IVF and stuff, and it's not bad. And I don't know.
If you're...
I don't know, it's hard.
So it's a way to conceptualize. It's about conceptualizing things, I think. People who go to church tend to view things a certain way, and it actually helps them. That's why I think religion sticks around. If it's working for you, go for it. Keep doing it. I don't think it's true. I'm not convinced of the existence of any god or gods or deities or supernatural or paranormal or anything like that, but doesn't mean I'm not open to changing my mind. But if something's working for you, if Biddy Buddha, she's badass, and she's full atheist and stuff, but she likes doing tarot cards and stuff like that. She just finds it fun, and for her it's a thing that helps her. She finds it fun, she finds entertainment from it, she finds it gives her a nice story. People, I read Lord of the Rings and I get feelings from Lord of the Rings, and that help me think about things. Or I remember playing Zelda, and then when I had to do something challenging in the real life, I actually thought about the courage that Zelda had. These stories that Zelda's not real, but Link is not real, but these are stories that we tell ourselves to get through things. So if you have to think about being like Link and having courage, go for it. If you have to pray to a god, go for it. Whatever, do whatever your thing is. I'm not a hardline atheist that thinks everyone should believe what I believe. I'm just not convinced of the evidence, but I'm open to change my mind. So that's what I would say. River City Films said, what's the most exciting small thing that you're looking forward to as being a parent?
I love Christmas massively, hugely. And so I know I can't wait to start our own little family Christmas traditions with the kids. That'll be really cool. Setting up the Christmas tree and going and look at Christmas lights and whatever we end up doing on Christmas Eve and stay together and stuff. Stuff like that.
And this is just weird, but I know that people, I can see how I've been looking at how I've been treating our puppies and to like what I enjoy, what I don't enjoy, and trying to better myself, with how I approach things with our dogs. So like if a dog wants a cuddle, I'm trying not to turn it away and push it away. If I don't want it, I'm trying to. This is weird, man. But anyway, the point is, one of the things I loved about Butters was helping him overcome fears, and helping him overcome and showing the dog new things. And I've always been like that. And I think that I'm really excited to show our children stuff. So I want to show them like cool things in Minecraft. I want to take them to the beach and show them waves for the first time, show them how to swim.
Yeah, it's all about first time stuff.
Yeah, first time things like that. We live in a cool area, like making friends with the kids down at the local playground, and playing handball and things like that. I also look forward to like getting out of the house a lot more. Hopefully getting more energy, losing weight and things like that. Not just sitting behind the computer all the time. I'm just really looking forward to that. I used to make video games, so it'd be really cool to take their drawings when they get to a certain age and like maybe put them in video games. I don't know if that'll happen, and this footage may be held against me in the court of the children in the future. But yeah, just doing things like that, like putting their stuff in video games, and it's just kind of cool. And just showing them things. Like I've always wanted to be like, take the kids not prospecting, but like looking at fossil beds. There's one close to us. You can't take anything, but there are insects that are like hundreds of millions of years old there. And showing them the different like levels and learning ourselves, and like, oh wow, we're like looking for fossils to look at. Or the stars, like showing them stars and explaining the grandness, the bigness of the cosmos, that's incomprehensibly large, is really awesome. Yeah, that's what I'm really looking forward to. River City Film said that's really cute. And that's Josh. And another thing is traveling. I can't believe I didn't mention that. Traveling with our kids is going to be huge. Traveling to Bali with Josh, River City Films, would be a cool thing to do. So yeah, like traveling around is a huge thing for us. And the names that we've picked out are actually related to travel in a way. So got a boy's name and a girl's name, and so it's gonna be good.
Yeah. So it's all like your first time stuff, and then like family time and traditions.
Yeah. So also part of the McDonald, so McDonald's were the largest clan of Highland Scots. McDonald means son of Donald. So there was a guy named Donald ages ago. But I think it's like 25% of McDonald's can trace their lineage back to Somerled. And Somerled was like this, the king of the northern, I think he was the king, or he was something of the northern. He was the big dude of the northern, the western coast of Scotland.
Very specific.
And he fought off the Vikings and beat them. And that's like from him, he had a son with a Viking wife or something, blah, blah, blah. And it ended up creating the clan McDonald. And 25% of McDonald's can trace their lineage back in. So it'd be really cool. And he was around 1150 AD. Really cool to get a DNA test. That's like $1,000 for that type of test. But to get that type of DNA test to actually see if if our child is related to Somerled, which would be really cool. Because we can then chase our lineage back to 1150 AD, like an exact person. And I got a book back there that goes through all the clans. Side note, Clan McDonald was so big at one stage they threatened the Scottish crown. So yeah, cool, right? So River City Films, call the boy Boeing. That's funny. So Mr. Bootleg said before, how do you feel about stories of children who were brought via surrogacy but craved their bio parents?
In regards to like, just like them meeting?
Yeah, I guess so.
Is that?
Yeah, I have no.
Yeah, I'm fine. Like if it was us and we went through a a surrogate,
Mm.
I'd be fine with them meeting
Yeah.
her.
Yeah. We're not really like.
Yeah, I know. I wouldn't like hide it or anything like that.
This comes back to us, like the honesty thing. Like we're very open and honest, and like you know, like we'd probably tell them from an early age. We kind of respect their intellect. We don't try to hide things. So I guess like it'd be like you of course you can go see your mother or whatever. Like I wouldn't care if they would be part of our lives, or I'm not gonna like
or even if they were adopted and stuff. If they wanted to go and meet their biological parents,
we'd set it up. Like
I'd be definitely in support of that.
But
I'm not denying that it'd probably be emotionally hard.
And
you'd have a lot of emotions come up. But I wouldn't deny them of that at all. They have the right.
One of the things that we do as well is like this. I mean, many times that we've been jealous of stuff in the relationship, but we like. I remember once I saw there's this guy at church come up behind you, gave you a big hug from behind, and like held on you from maybe gave you a huge hug. It was way too long, and it made me like it was when we first started dating. And I was like, ooh, and I looked away. I didn't like it. And I remember telling you like, hey, that made me feel jealous, but it wasn't for you to correct anything. I didn't want you to correct anything. I was like, this is what I'm dealing with. I felt jealousy then. I'm trying to work through my jealousy. And you're like, oh, well, did you see what I did afterwards? Like, no, I was like, I pushed him away because I thought, the hug was way too like long and whatever. And so we always do that in a relationship. Like we'll tell each other like, hey, I feel jealous, but it's not to make the other person change the behavior, because that's enabling the jealousy. It actually makes the jealousy worse. It's something it's if I'm jealous about something, or if Amy's jealous for something, we just show empathy to the other person. Like, I'm sorry you feel like that. Is there anything I can do to help you not feel like that? And I think that's a good way to approach things. So when it comes to children, like even if it's things like they like one parent more, or whatever,
Well, kids go through stages, right?
Yeah, and or like anything, we try and just be open and honest with our feelings, and then talk about how we can deal with that. And a lot of that comes from learning about how to deal with things properly through a psychologist, and it's really helped us. So once again, recommend everyone go to a psychologist. So with that said, we're going to wrap up. If anyone's got any last questions, but that essentially, that's our story, our IVF journey. And do you have any other advice for anyone with IVF or fertility stuff?
Other than what I've already said. I know you're putting me on the spot here.
Okay, do you have advice? I got a better question. Forget that first question. Do you have any advice for people who know someone, who want to help someone, support someone who's going through fertility treatment?
Just listen.
Okay.
Yeah. Check in and see how they're going, and just listen to what they have to say. Like, if they want advice or anything, then they'll probably ask. So just be a sounding board. Because too many people start interjecting their personal opinions, and it might not line up with yours, and then make things more difficult for you. Be a sounding board to those people.
That's great advice. So when you say listen, that means don't give advice unless asked. Like a lot of people, it's so tempting to you see the little chickling coming out of its shell, and you want to peel apart the shell. You got to let it get out of the shell itself. Like you can't. You've just got to hold your tongue, and it's really hard. But sometimes it's the best thing to do. Or sometimes, and I do this for conversations outside of it as well. Is I'll say to someone like, when I'm talking to someone, I'll say like, hey, do you want me to listen, or are you after advice? And usually that'll prompt them. And sometimes people just want to rant, and they just want someone to listen. like I've even had people, like I've caught myself giving too much advice, and they say, look, I don't want advice, I just want to tell you. And I'm like, okay, cool. And that's what kind of, but yeah, so it's often good to ask them what they're actually, what their expectations are for you. And that's a big thing in relationships as well. This is a relationship stream as well, but you know, the lady or the husband or wife or husband or whatever might come home and be like ranting, and usually what I find is a lot of my maids, the husbands will start, or the partners, boyfriends, whatever, will start solving the problems. Solve, because they want to solve the issue. Well, you've got this problem. Here's the solution. But the partner doesn't want a solution. They're just what they're experiencing something emotional, and they need empathy. And I had once again a psychologist point out to me that there's actually like a mechanism in the brain that essentially blocks that any form of the ability to deal with the problem until they have dealt with the emotional part first. So like if you came home and you're like ranting about something, listen to you, I can touch you, I can offer you empathy if you're sad or whatever. And it's not until you've dealt with that emotional part of it that you can actually deal with the rational part of it. And that's the same for me as well. So it's good to just ask, hey, what do you want me to just listen, or would you like some advice? And that'll usually give you the answer. It's a really good tool to say. Yeah. Oh, well, thank you everyone for watching. Make sure you like, favorite, subscribe, do all the good stuff, share it with someone you know. And another thing is, we mentioned at the start that Deep Drinks is getting really popular. Well, more popular than not really popular, but more popular than I thought it was on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, things like that. And of course, make sure you subscribe and you share it with some friends, because we have some cool episodes coming up. And once we get to 1,000 subscribers, we will be doing a 6-hour charity stream, and I might be able to convince Aimee to come on. It might even be after you've given birth and you can do shots or something. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know what the deal is with breast milk or whatever, but we can work it out. So anyway, thank you everyone for joining in. It's been great, and thanks for everyone for showing up. And we'll see you guys later. Bye.